Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive deep?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're tackling something super interesting. Emotional intelligence, or EI. We're going to explore why some people just seem to, handle life's ups and downs with this amazing sense of grace, while others, well, they struggle.
What do you think? Is it just luck? Talent, maybe?
Such a fascinating question, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really makes you think. But, the more I've learned, the more I believe that it's not some magical inborn ability. It's more like a set of skills, almost like tools you can learn to use. Anyone can develop them, which is pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if it's like a skill, like a muscle we can train, why is it so important? Why should we even bother with this whole emotional intelligence thing? Well, think about it. Our emotions, they're like the engine behind almost everything we do, right? They influence our decisions, big and small. They impact our relationships, at work, at home, everywhere. They play a huge role in our successes and, let's be honest, our failures too. Emotional intelligence is really about understanding those emotions, learning to manage them, not letting them control us, and even using them to our advantage.
So it's not about like becoming some emotionless robot. It's more about, I don't know, like conducting our own internal symphony.
Exactly.
Uh,
And you know what I find really interesting? Our source material dives into this idea that our lives, they aren't just a bunch of random events strung together. They're actually shaped in a big way by our emotional patterns, like how we typically react to things. It's almost like we're wearing these filters that affect how we see the world. Recognizing those filters and maybe even changing them, that's where the real power comes in.
wow, I like that. It's almost like realizing we have more control over our lives than we thought. But how do we even begin to like spot these hidden emotional patterns? They're hidden for a reason, right?
It all starts with awareness. Think of it like shining a light on those automatic reactions we have, the ones we don't even think about. It's about becoming really curious about our own emotions. Like, for example, think about a time when you had a really strong reaction to something, anything. Anger, frustration, even, intense joy.
Okay, let me see. Oh, I remember this one time, a big project I was leading. It totally fell apart at the last minute. And I was furious. But thinking back, I think there was more to it. I was scared too. Scared of failing, of letting the team down.
Perfect example. You're peeling back the layers there. It wasn't just anger, right? It was a whole mix of fear and disappointment too. That's emotional awareness in action. We're not just slapping a label on it like good or bad. We're getting to the nuances.
It's like those optical illusions where you see one image, but then you look closer and boom, there's a whole other picture hidden in there.
Exactly. And just like with those illusions, the more we practice paying attention to our emotions, the better we get at recognizing those subtle cues within ourselves. It's like learning a whole new language, the language of emotions.
And once we know the language, we can actually do something with it.
Absolutely. And that's where emotional understanding comes in. We're going beyond simply recognizing the emotion. We're digging deeper into the why. Like, what triggered this feeling? What thoughts are feeding it? What might happen if I just act on this emotion without thinking?
So it's about making the connections between our thoughts, our feelings, and then ultimately our actions.
Precisely. And when we get those connections, that's when we can start making conscious choices. We can respond in a way that matches our values and goals instead of just being, controlled by knee-jerk reactions.
Okay, this is starting to feel like we're building some kind of superpower here. The power to actually choose our responses instead of just like reacting to whatever life throws at us.
Mm.
But emotions are powerful. How do we actually learn to manage them? Seems almost impossible, right?
Yeah. That's where emotional control comes in. It's not about ignoring or pretending we don't have feelings. No way. It's more like channeling that energy. Think of a skilled surfer riding a wave.
Okay, I love that image. So instead of being wiped out by a wave of emotion, we can actually ride it, use its power to our advantage.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful tools for emotional control is the pause. That moment before we react, just take a step back, breathe, observe the emotion without judgment.
Like hitting the pause button on a movie right before the intense scene. Gives us a chance to gather our thoughts and decide, okay, how do I want this next part to go?
You got it. And in that pause, that's when we can ask ourselves some important questions like, what's the best way to handle this? What might happen down the road because of what I do now? How can I use this energy, this emotion, and turn it into something good?
So we're not denying our emotions, we're just being smarter about how we handle them.
You got it. And the more we do this, the better we get at handling those intense moments without getting swept away. We build resilience, that ability to handle the storms of life without, losing our footing.
This is fascinating. We've talked about awareness, understanding, control.
Yeah.
Is there more to this puzzle?
You're right on track. There's one more piece, and it might be the most important one of all. Empathy. It's the ability to step outside of ourselves, to really understand what someone else is going through, to connect with their feelings, even if we see things differently.
It's like stepping into someone else's shoes, experiencing the world from their perspective. But isn't that, I don't know, kind of scary, opening ourselves up to all those emotions, even the uncomfortable ones?
It can be, but that's also what makes empathy so powerful when it comes to building real connections. We have to let go of our ego a little bit, that need to be right all the time, and really listen with our hearts.
It's about making others feel heard, like their feelings matter.
Exactly. And it's amazing. Empathy isn't just about feeling what others are feeling. It's also about showing them that you get it.
So it's not enough to just feel empathy. We have to express it in a way that makes them feel understood.
Right. It's about saying things like, I hear you, or I can see why you feel that way. It's about showing support, even if you don't have all the answers or solutions.
This is all making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is this just theory? Are there, actual things we can do to develop these emotional intelligence skills?
Great question. And I'm happy to say our source material dives deep into that. It talks about specific techniques for, changing those mental filters we talked about, building healthier emotional habits, and then taking action based on what we've learned about ourselves.
So this isn't just some vague idea. There are concrete strategies we can use to actually make a difference in our lives.
Absolutely. And those are exactly the strategies we'll be exploring next. One of the most powerful things we can do to build our emotional intelligence is to reframe how we look at things. It's about challenging those automatic negative thoughts that can really hold us back.
So, instead of seeing a problem as a total disaster, we can choose to see it as a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly. It's all about shifting our focus from what's going wrong to what's possible. For example, let's say you're facing a crazy deadline at work. Instead of freaking out, you could see it as an opportunity to really sharpen those time management skills, show everyone you can handle the pressure.
I like that. It's like turning a stressful situation into a personal challenge, a game almost.
Right. And the more we practice reframing, the easier it gets. It becomes a habit, a natural way of dealing with life's ups and downs. We're training our brains to find that silver lining, the opportunity hidden in every situation.
So it's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing where we focus our energy, what we can learn from any experience.
That's it. And speaking of control, another key strategy for building emotional intelligence is working on our emotional habits. Because our habits, especially the emotional ones, they can make or break us.
So instead of instantly getting angry when someone criticizes us, we can learn to take a breath and choose a better way to respond.
You got it. It's about breaking those automatic negative patterns and replacing them with something more empowering. Let's say instead of getting all defensive, you could try listening carefully, maybe asking for clarification, and then responding in a way that shows empathy and understanding.
That sounds way easier said than done. How do we actually change those deep-rooted emotional habits? They feel so ingrained.
It takes time and effort, no doubt, but it is possible. One thing that can really help is to figure out your emotional triggers. What are those specific situations or people that tend to push your buttons?
For me, I think it's when I feel like I'm not being heard or respected. I tend to just shut down or get defensive.
That's a great insight. Now that you know that trigger, you can start to plan how you'll handle it differently next time.
So maybe instead of shutting down, I could try saying something like, I feel like my perspective isn't being valued right now. Can we try to understand each other's points of view?
Exactly. You're being assertive, but also respectful and open to conversation. The more you practice these new responses, the more natural they will become.
So emotional intelligence is about more than just understanding our emotions. It's about actually doing something with that knowledge. It's about action.
You're absolutely right. That's where it all comes together. Intentional action. It's about using everything we've learned, our awareness, understanding, and control, to make choices that match our values and goals.
So we're moving from just reacting to life to actually creating the life we want. We're being intentional and purposeful.
That's a great way to put it. And when we take those intentional actions, that's when we start to see real transformation in our relationships, our work, our well-being, everything.
It's all about empowerment. But can we see some real-life examples of how emotional intelligence can actually make a difference?
Of course. Let's talk about performance. People with high emotional intelligence, they tend to excel in areas like decision-making, leadership, teamwork. They can think clearly under pressure, build strong connections, and inspire others to do their best.
So it's not just about feeling good. It actually helps us get real results.
Absolutely. Imagine a leader facing a tough situation with their team. An emotionally intelligent leader would be able to manage their own stress, understand where their team is coming from, and communicate clearly to find a solution that works for everyone.
That's a lot more effective than a leader who yells or just shuts down when things get hard.
Right. And it's not just about leadership. Emotional intelligence can improve performance in any field. Think of a salesperson who can read a client's emotions and adjust their approach, or a teacher who creates a safe and supportive learning space for their students.
So it's really a tool we can use to navigate any situation where we're dealing with people to achieve our goals.
Exactly. And beyond just performance, emotional intelligence is crucial for personal growth and self-awareness too.
Now that's something I'm really interested in. How does it help us grow as individuals?
Well, it starts with self-awareness. The better you understand your own emotions, your strengths, your weaknesses, what you value, and what motivates you, the better choices you can make. Choices that align with who you really are.
It's like creating a map for your life, a map based on a deep understanding of yourself, what you truly want.
Exactly. And then there's resilience. Emotionally intelligent people are better at bouncing back from setbacks. They don't fall apart under pressure. They see failure as a chance to learn and grow.
They're like those inflatable punching bags. You can knock them down, but they always pop back up.
I love that analogy. They can reframe those negative experiences, learn from mistakes, and come back even stronger.
This is incredible. But I have to ask, are we born with this emotional intelligence, or can we develop it over time?
That's a common question. And the great news is emotional intelligence isn't fixed. It's like any skill. You can learn and improve it with practice.
So even if you weren't born with high emotional intelligence, you're not stuck.
Exactly. And the more we invest in developing it, the more we benefit in all areas of our lives.
You know, as we talk about this, I'm realizing that emotional intelligence isn't just about ourselves. It's also about how we connect with other people, especially in tough situations.
You're right. In fact, one of the most valuable ways to use emotional intelligence is in conflict resolution.
Yeah, that's something I think we could all use some help with. Because let's be real, conflict is everywhere. At work, at home, in our relationships, we're bound to have disagreements and challenges.
Absolutely. And how we handle those conflicts can make all the difference. People with high emotional intelligence, they're skilled at navigating those choppy waters effectively and with, a bit of grace.
So how does emotional intelligence help us do that? What are some strategies?
Well, one key strategy is to focus on understanding the other person's perspective. It's about trying to see things from their point of view, even if we don't agree.
That sounds a lot like empathy.
It is. Empathy is essential for conflict resolution. It allows us to step outside our own emotions and try to see the situation through their eyes.
And that can be really hard when we're feeling hurt, angry, or defensive ourselves.
Definitely. But those are the times when empathy is even more important. We have to remember that the other person is also feeling things, even if they show it differently than we do.
So we're trying to see their humanity, even in the middle of a disagreement.
Exactly. And that can be so powerful because it helps us to de-escalate the situation and find some common ground.
It's like building a bridge instead of a wall.
Right. And it's not just about understanding them, it's about expressing our own feelings effectively too.
So instead of yelling or just shutting down completely, we can share our needs and concerns in a calm and assertive way.
You got it. That's where emotional control comes in. When we can manage our emotions, we're less likely to say or do things we'll regret later.
We can think before we react.
Exactly. That can completely change how a conflict plays out. Instead of making things worse, we can create a space for understanding and resolution.
This is making so much sense. It's like emotional intelligence gives us a whole new toolkit for handling relationships.
It absolutely does, and those tools are valuable in every part of our lives, not just conflict resolution.
You know, as we're talking about this, it's hitting me that emotional intelligence is more than just a set of skills. It's like a whole philosophy, a way of living in the world with more awareness, compassion, and purpose.
Beautifully put. And what's so exciting is that this journey of emotional intelligence is open to everyone.
It's not just for like emotional gurus. It's something we can all learn and grow from.
Exactly. And the more we embrace it, the more we unlock our potential for personal growth, deeper relationships, and a more meaningful life.
This has been an amazing deep dive so far. We've covered so much, from the basics of emotional intelligence to how it works in real life with our performance, personal growth, even handling conflict. I'm already thinking about how I can put these ideas into practice.
That's fantastic to hear. And, if you want to take this journey even further, I highly recommend checking out concentratedwisdom.com.
Yeah, that's a great resource. Concentratedwisdom.com is perfect for anyone who wants to accelerate their personal growth. They have so much information, tools, and guidance on all sorts of topics, including emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. And they have some amazing programs that can really help you take these principles and create real change in your life.
I'm definitely going to check it out. But before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to add? Any final thoughts or insights for our listeners?
Something that's really sticking with me from this conversation is the impact emotional intelligence has on our well-being overall. It's not just about being successful or avoiding conflict. It's about that deep inner peace and resilience, even when life gets tough.
Oh, I totally agree. When we're emotionally healthy, it affects everything. We can handle stress better, build stronger relationships, and navigate the ups and downs of life with more grace and balance.
Exactly. It's not about being happy all the time. It's about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace and resilience.
It's about learning to ride the waves instead of being tossed around by them.
I love that image. And I think it's something we can all strive for.
It's like we've gotten this backstage pass to understanding what really shapes our lives. And the more we get it, the more power we have to actually create the life we want.
One of the most valuable things I've taken away from digging into all of this is that emotional intelligence isn't just about, controlling our emotions. It's about seeing how important they are, how they can guide us.
So instead of seeing emotions as the enemy, we can actually learn to see them as allies, like messengers with important information.
Exactly. Every single emotion, whether it's joy or sadness, anger or fear, it's trying to tell us something. It's like learning to listen to what they're saying, figuring out what they mean, and then using that information to navigate life.
I like that. It's like our emotions are part of this built-in guidance system, helping us understand what we need, what we value, even where our boundaries are.
And when we ignore those messages, when we try to push down our emotions or pretend they're not there, it's like we're cutting ourselves off from this source of wisdom.
It's like driving a car with a broken speedometer.
Yeah.
We might be moving, but we have no idea how fast we're going or where we're headed.
That's a great way to put it. But when we're open to our emotions, when we actually listen to what they're telling us, we get a much deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful, so empowering. I feel like I have a totally new perspective on emotional intelligence and what it can do for us.
I'm so happy to hear that. And this is just the beginning. The more we explore this world of emotional intelligence, the more we discover how deep it goes and how much it impacts every single part of who we are.
We've talked about so much, from being aware of our emotions to understanding them, controlling our reactions, and really tapping into empathy. But it all comes down to this. If our emotions are shaping our lives, even when we don't realize it, what changes can we make starting today to really harness their power?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the cool thing is, there isn't one right answer. Emotional intelligence is a personal journey. It's about figuring out what works best for you, for your own unique needs and situation.
But it's a journey worth taking.
Without a doubt. Every step we take toward greater emotional intelligence brings us closer to a more fulfilling, meaningful, and authentic life.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into emotional intelligence. We hope you've walked away with some valuable insights and tools to help you navigate life with more awareness, understanding, and grace.
Keep exploring, keep growing, and keep embracing the power of your emotions. We'll see you next time.
This is the Concentrated Wisdom Podcast signing off. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and don't forget to share the wisdom with someone who needs it.